Hi, everybody. Welcome to another week in Pensado's Place. It's the first week of a new year. It's a truncated week, so we're shooting from the pad for a second. Just want to give you some info before we introduce our guests. That information would be get your buns to NAMM if you can. We had lots of stuff going on, very educational, meet a lot of people. We're going to be there and we want to see you. We'll be at the Avid booth for 3 days, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Thursday will be Leslie Braithwaite, Cardi B fame, and a bunch of other stuff. Friday, the perennial genius, Greg Wells. He had the #1 record with Katy Perry over the Christmas holidays. Obviously, the Greatest Showman soundtrack, and on and on. And then multiple Grammy winner on Saturday, Rance Dobson, Boo'd Up was the #1 record. It's up for Record of the Year. I mean, a lot of fruitful information. You want to be there. A couple other spots we'll be at. We'll be at the outdoor stage right outside the Pro Audio Hall on Thursday evening at 5 o'clock. And then a very special presentation Friday evening in the Hilton Hotel California Ballroom, and we'll announce that special guest next week, a behemoth, to say the least. So we look forward to seeing you. It's coming right up. Get your reservations in. Now for the first ITL of the year, here's Dave and his boy Jaime on reverse echo and reverb.
Recently, Jaime Estelalia, a member of my team, played me a song that I thought was really cool, a song he mixed. And there was this one effect in it that I wanted to share with you. Jaime, you want to come up here and show him how to do it?
Thanks, Dave. Guys, I'm Jaime. I'm a member of Dave's team.
Hey.
And I'm going to play a little piece of this song so you can hear what's going on.
Windows at the back of your mind when I try looking in.
Pretty cool. So in this section, I needed something to enhance the energy a little bit. And it's a tried and true technique to reverse sounds in a mix. But I did something a little bit different here. So let's take a look at it. So I got two things going on. One is a reverb. And then I have a delay as well. So the way I did it is I took a piece of the vocal and put a reverb on it. I have a little plate, pretty long. So what I did is I committed this track and placed it where I want my effect to end. And then I reversed it and put some plugins on it. So I have Soundtoys Microshift to widen it, an automatic panner that's adding a little bit of interest in the stereo field, some widening, and a filter. And I did a similar process for the delay. I added a delay, a quarter note, committed it, put it where I want the effect to end, and reversed it. So let's hear it one more time. So then I thought, man, this delay is pretty cool by itself, but what if I put an echo on a reverse echo? And I wanted to use this plugin that's just amazing. It's called EchoSon by a company called Overloud, and you guys should check it out. It's just incredible. So this is, I got some other plugins that I'll show you in a minute, but this is the echo just how I committed it. And here it is with EchoSon. And then I added a flanger, it's a meta flanger right here, and micro shift for a little bit of widening again. And this is what it sounds like. Cool, so let's see the finished product and how it sounds in the song. This is a song by an up-and-coming artist called Faye. Thank you, Faye, for letting me share this with you guys. Let's check it out.
Windows at the back of your mind when I try looking in.
So, you know, it just makes it more of an event when the vocal comes in the first verse. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks so much for tuning in, and see you next time.
Our guest is an artist who tours, can teach you Ableton, and designs live shows for folks like Kanye West, Logic, Porter Robinson, Jay-Z, The Weeknd. She's a compelling lady. Her name is Laura Escudé.
Hi.
Now, one of the things before we get started is one of the greatest honors that we saw you receive was being at Pensado Awards 4. So,
Yes.
you know, we just had to get a plug in early. Where did all this start? In Florida? You got so many things going on.
Okay, so the short story, violinist, classical violinist, went to a rave, discovered electronic music, was like, what am I doing?
Right.
How can I get in that? How can I record myself? I met a DJ, said, can I play over your music? It was drum and bass, terrible idea. The fastest music that you can play over. I'm like, this is the hardest thing ever. But it worked out. I said, how do I record myself? And they said, oh, the learning curve is too high. You're never going to get it. And I said, well, I'm going to just make it my life's mission to get it. And so I did.
Did it start with Ableton?
No. Started with Acid Pro. Back in the day. And
The orange pills or the black pills?
Yeah. It made it all better,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Everything's
absolutely.
better on acid,
I'm
right?
on it now. Yeah.
So anyway, I was using Acid Pro and Cakewalk at the time. Also started using Cubase, got into Pro Tools, and then down the road got into Ableton Live.
Got it.
Yeah. Another kind of funny story at that time was I met George Clinton and his son. They came to this nightclub that I was promoting shows at.
Oh my goodness.
And I ended up getting in the studio with them because they had a studio in Tallahassee where I was going to school. So I started learning how to produce literally in George Clinton's studio.
The stories you must have from that, we won't go there now.
yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And did the artistry in EDM grow while the making of learning how to make music grow? Did they come together? Did they correlate?
Yes. Oh, yes. I mean, I struggled a lot for years to find my sound, as most people do when they are first starting. I made a lot of bad, terrible music.
Yeah.
But eventually hit my stride and started honing in on my signature sound. Yeah.
And once that sound started, did live performance come shortly after that, during that? Did you have to get to certain levels of popularity before the live stuff started happening?
You know, I always was trying to perform, even early on, because I was coming from playing violin, right? So I knew I was a performer.
Right.
It was just this totally new thing to do it electronically.
Yeah.
And by yourself.
Yeah, and by myself. Yeah, and so I played in some bands, and I decided to do my own solo project. I can't tell you the name of the first project, but if you dig hard on the internet, you might find it.
Okay.
But yeah, it was just, I really was afraid of performing as an electronic musician, and that fear propelled me to just keep doing it. And I remember moving to Los Angeles knowing I have to do this, and I'm scared, but I'm going to do it. Yeah.
And the irony of what you do now, given where it started from.
Absolutely.
Pretty
Yeah,
amazing.
Absolutely.
And so the artistry side was first, because originally you performed under what was how do you say?
Alux.
Alux.
Yeah,
I'm making it harder with it.
Way before there was another.
You're right. That's the one. The staff is
We'll
looking on the
never find
internet
that one.
right now. Exactly. How many did you put out records under Alux?
Yes.
How many did you put out?
2 EPs and an album.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then an album under my own name. So I've gone through a couple of different iterations of things. But yeah, an album under my own name 10 years ago. Yeah.
Oh, really? 10 years ago? Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So then Transmute, right?
Yeah.
When was that?
That was just released last month. Yeah.
Right. Got it. And that's the newest.
That's the latest and
Got
the
it.
greatest.
But
Yeah.
it represents a lot of change and stuff. A lot
Absolutely.
of like
Yeah.
what went on?
Oh man, so much stuff. I mean, again, the short of it, you know, I was touring for many years, was living this life on the road. You know, you guys talk to a lot of people on here that
hard.
have been on the road,
hard.
and it is a grind, right?
It is hard.
So, yeah, I hit a point 2.5 years ago where I just had really burned myself out. I ended up in the hospital. I was very sick, very ill. I had to completely just 180 my lifestyle and just where I was headed. And I was just going so fast
Yeah.
and not slowing down.
Yeah.
And that was like life. Hey, you need to slow down. And so I took that as a blessing, you know, and I took that as a sign from the universe or whatever you want to call it,
right.
that to slow down and to transmute some of this energy into a new way of being, a new realm, a new energy. And that's really how Transmute the Music was born. It was just through that happening to me and then shifting that energy and coming out on the other side.
You said
Yeah.
you said that record, the whole album, I guess it's more of an EP,
Yes.
represented the darkest moments of your life. That's quite a statement.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
What were those dark moments?
I mean, really just, you know, landing in the hospital and just not knowing, you know, what was wrong, how I was going to get out. I mean, I really had to I had a lot of time in there to look at my life and how I wanted to be and how I wanted to deal with stress, right? And people have different ways of dealing with stress, and you know, there's drinking, there's drugs, there's all kinds of different ways. And you know, I realized that I needed better ways to deal with
cope.
my stress.
Yep.
And so it was just like examining myself and just realizing, hey, like, I can deal with stress in healthier ways that don't land me here.
And
Yeah.
and I must say kudos to you for talking about it, being open to it, because
Thank
we
you.
see more and more people doing it, and it's really important to do it.
Yeah.
I had a conversation at dinner yesterday with somebody, and we were talking about that very same thing. There's a lot of that around. The natural inclination is to bury it and hide it, and that's the stuff that'll kill you
Oh,
at some point in time.
absolutely.
And if you don't
Yeah.
process it, and particularly now, I think the whole country is stressed out in some ways.
Oh.
That's a whole other discussion.
Absolutely.
But
Yeah.
it's really prevalent in people. And
Absolutely, and I have a lot of young people that look up to me, and I want to be an example for them and to show them, hey, there's other ways that you can deal with stress. There's other ways that you can live your life, and even my peers, like we talk to each other now, and it's like, hey, what are you doing for your self-care? What are you doing for your health? Like, how are you taking care of yourself? Because anyone, especially in the live industry, knows it's stressful.
Oh, boy.
It
Oh,
can
boy.
be. So
Now-
now we meditate and we just right before, you know.
Now, what's interesting about the juxtaposition there is some people would turn to music to get away from that or to process it. And you're a music maker. You're a creator. You teach
Yeah.
Ableton. You were the first
Absolutely.
certified trainer, and so forth.
Yeah.
Was music an escape place, or sometimes was it the problem?
I think music, it helped me to get my process out, and it helped move me from this, literally from this place of darkness to this place of lightness, because I found for the first time I was really accessing like deeper parts of myself that I hadn't accessed before. And I was like, what am I really trying to say here? What is my story? Like, how am I transmuting? How am I flowing through this? And I really use the music as a therapy for myself, you know, to do that.
And was it the making of the music or the performing of it?
It was originally the making of the music, and now it's the performing of it, because along with just, you know, the challenges that I had health-wise, and I'm fantastic now, and I've made a lot of
Congrats.
changes in my life, and I'm
Good for
feeling
you.
really good, and I'm, yeah.
You're looking good too.
Oh,
Laura.
thank
Absolutely.
you. Thank you. But just to shift some of my energy and limiting beliefs around what I could and couldn't do on stage, and like, you know, performing live, like singing live, like doing, performing other instruments, like engaging with the audience, you know, just really, just supporting myself to make mistakes, to not be perfectionistic, to like move past all of that, and to take risks. And that's what it's all about for me now. And through that process, through the making of the music, was like, okay, now I'm going to perform this music, and now I'm going to put myself out there in a way that I haven't before. And what does that look like? What is the thing that scares me silly? Like, what is that thing? And I'm going to go do it.
Embrace
So
it.
I've just been like step by step. Okay, I'm really scared to do that. Let's go do it.
But you're performing on Transmute. You're performing that alone, right?
Yeah, alone. Engineered.
He went on stage.
Yeah, engineered it, produced it. I did the first pass of mixes and got. Thankfully, I know when to bring other people in to do.
Yeah, but when you're performing live in front of an audience, it's just you and the
It's just
equipment.
me. Yeah, it's just me. So it's very vulnerable. It's just very much putting myself out there. It's my heart. It's really a place for me to access a different side of myself and to have some freedom and to express some things that I kind of keep hidden, as you mentioned before. Like, we don't talk about our emotions and how we're feeling and all that kind of stuff a lot.
And when you tour, your per diems are pretty low because it's just you out there.
Yeah.
There's no
Save those up
payroll.
and buy some gear.
My mom was a good musician. Mom always loved the sound of the violin. She said it's so sad.
Yeah.
Do you think that's why you were drawn to the violin? You were kind of predisposed to this dark.
In a
getting
way,
past it?
like I consider myself a pretty light, positive person. I mean, I've gone through some darkness, of course. We all have.
We all
but
have. We all have.
I just have found myself drawn to this cinematic, dark music, and I think violin is just very much part of that. Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong. There's not too many instruments where you can express yourself as thoroughly as, say, a guitar, a sax, or a violin. The sound of the violin is my second favorite sound in music. Yeah, it's just it just tears my heart out when I hear about a sad violin. And,
What is the sound of the heart?
On Transmute, did you use a transducer on the violin, or was it a microphone?
It was a microphone. It was a Royer microphone. I can't tell you the model, but it was a ribbon mic by Royer. And I love the sound of it.
It's very aggressive. I love the sounds on. I'm talking about the song Transmute, not the album.
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
Yeah, the sound of that was just incredible. And Awaken, same thing. I mean, it was real aggressive both those times.
Thank you. Well, I also have a good mix engineer, Bobby Campbell, who mixes Logic stuff. So shout out to Bobby.
Yeah. Tell him I give him compliments. The mixing is great. The violin sound, I just can't get over it. It's remember Jean-Luc Ponty?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It reminded me, if he was a little more aggressive, it reminded me of some of his stuff.
Oh, that's such a compliment.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Who were some of your violin heroes?
I really was into,
Because you were classically trained, right?
Yeah. Boyd Tinsley from Dave Matthews Band.
Yeah.
I remember when I found out about him, I was like, I can't believe that this person exists, because I'd come from this classical background, and I didn't know that you could play the violin like that.
Be funky with it.
All right.
Yeah.
And I saw him perform, and I was like, that's what I wanted. Not exactly in that way, but I want to be free like that.
Yeah. I love
Because
Dave Matthews.
coming from a classical background and like reading off of a piece of paper to being free and just like improvising. I was
Absolutely.
like, that's the dream. That's the goal right there. Yeah. So he's incredible.
When you tour, do you have specially made violins for touring for that? Because I've noticed that there's a see-through kind of clear thing, which is really cool. So you have them custom made?
That one, I did. That one actually doesn't sound as good as my acoustic violin, and my David Gage Realist violin is my acoustic 5-string violin, and it's like my baby. I love that thing. I play it all the time, and I have a really expensive, violin from college that I got and spent a lot of my scholarship money on. And this Realist David Gage violin, it sounds so good. Yeah, and it's got a pickup right on it, so you just plug in right to the instrument.
There you
Yeah,
go.
it's great. But then I also have this acrylic violin, which I got more cosmetically because it looks badass.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. That's why I asked. I was
But
like,
it doesn't sound as good, because of the resonance of the body of the violin and all
stuff,
that.
yeah.
So I still use both, and I have different effects for both.
so you're not taking
Yeah.
Stradivarius out and doing your thing with it?
No,
Probably not.
no,
got
yeah.
you. Got you.
Definitely
got you.
not.
The trainer phase.
Yeah.
You're the first certified Ableton trainer.
Uh-huh.
Do you get something back from teaching?
Oh,
Is
absolutely.
Is that part of the incentive?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, as I mentioned before, just young people, like, it just really warms my heart to see them light up when I share something or show something or just talk about my story. I love talking about my story because it's just so twisting and winding. And I mean, if you'd asked me when I was in college if I'd end up here, I mean, just no way.
Right.
So people always want to know, how did you get to where you are? I'm like, well, I met this person and they introduced me to this person and then this happened. So, I just love telling the story. I have a lot of stories. And I just love inspiring, I just really do. And I love helping people on their path to do what I've been doing. And yeah, it's just brings me a lot of light. I don't have any kids, so this is like my version of having kids.
I say it all the time. My business is
You said one time your network is as important as your net worth.
Yes, absolutely.
I thought that was a cool quote.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's true. Our community is my community is everything. I would be nowhere without the people that mentored me, the people in my community. Like, we're all helping each other to rise up, and it's just those people that are good people with good hearts that I just really identify with. And there's no secrets with my crew and the people that I'm around. Back in the day, I kind of felt like there were more people that I was surrounded by that were like, oh, I'm not going to tell you how I did that, or I'm not going to do this. And now it's like, I want to be around the people that want to share, because they're going to do it. We all have our different methods and we're doing it in different ways.
While I'm throwing quotes at you.
Yeah, okay.
Some artists push buttons.
Oh, yeah.
Lead artists push boundaries.
Yeah, I'm actually
I
going to
want to
change
be
it
an
to...
elite artist. I push buttons for a living. How do I get to be an elite artist, sweetheart?
Well,
I'm not sure I like that quote.
Yeah, I'm going to change it to... I was thinking about changing
And
it
there's
to
some
innovative.
hypocrisy there because
Yeah.
I saw a couple of videos where you were talking about pushing buttons yourself.
Yeah.
So
Well, you
how
know
do
what?
I become elite?
Well, okay, so I want to shift that word to innovative because I think elite has a little, and you know what? It's
Bourgeois
funny. I was
connotation.
just
wanna be
talking
elite.
with my team yesterday about that. I'm like, I'm not sure about that word. Yeah. So
You want to be
innovative,
a classist.
right? So some people, right? Exactly. But it's to be innovative, right?
By the way, I'm just teasing you.
No. I'm glad that you brought it up because literally just yesterday I was talking about this. So, yes, you can get up on stage and yes, you can press a button and you can press play, right? And it happens all the time. And some people in some atmospheres, it doesn't matter. Like if you're at a show and there's, 20, 30,000 people, they just want to hear the songs, right? They just want to hear the music like it sounds on the album. Sometimes you can throw some funny stuff and, loop things or do some weird things, but for the most part, they just want to hear the songs. Now, if you're in a smaller atmosphere in like the world that I'm in, people are kind of hanging on to like my every movement.
Absolutely.
Like, what are you doing now?
Right.
What's going on now?
Right.
I'm not playing to 20,000 to 30,000 people. I mean, I do that with my clients, but not for my own music. So, just the idea of being able to express yourself more on stage as I've progressed in my career, I've done more and it's pushed myself to do more, to press more buttons, to express myself in different ways, by being more improvisational, by doing more vocals, to play instruments on a controller, play a keyboard or what have you. And I think it's just so cool when I see people expressing themselves in different ways through using controllers and instruments. And so I have a program. It's called Transmute Accelerator that I'm launching next year.
It's an online course, correct?
Online course. Yeah, the first time I'm doing doing this, and it's like really for people who want to follow in my footsteps and learn what I've done, be a badass live performer.
I know in what you do, you have this incredible design business where you create shows for people like Jay-Z and Kanye and Logic and Garbage, a whole bunch of, really, really amazing folks. Where did that come from? And then, like, what mindset-wise, and then how'd you turn into a business?
Mindset-wise, okay. So this is an interesting story. So I worked at Ableton, I became certified, and kind of became known as being the go-to person for Ableton Live stuff in LA. At this time, it was very new. I mean, it wasn't very new, but it was still emerging software. And my job when I worked at Ableton was to go around to all the stores and teach salespeople how to sell the software. And so I was a product specialist, and I would say, hey, like, this is a great way you can sell this. You can make a beat like this. And they'd be like, whatever. I went to West LA Music a lot. And there was a salesperson there who said, hey, there's this guy, he wants to learn Ableton Live. He works with Kanye West. And I was like,
Anthony.
oh, yeah, Anthony Kilhofer. So I met up with Anthony Kilhofer, and this was in 2009. And he was like, yeah, we need to build this show and this software. And I said, well, yeah, I'm your woman. So we started working together, and then later I ended up going on the road and taking over his job because he was more of a studio guy and he didn't want to be touring. So I started doing the touring stuff. But yeah, that's kind of how it got started. I also, at that same time, got a call from Cirque du Soleil in Vegas, and they said, can you move to Vegas and do this show Viva Elvis for 4 months? And I said, sure, people do this for a living? Like, I had no idea it was even a job. It was like, yeah, you're going to do Ableton Live stuff for the whole fall in Vegas.
How cool
so
is
I did that, and then when I came back from that, it just kind of started,
snowballing.
People were like, oh, she does some live stuff, and, and so it kind of kept snowballing, and I kept getting these calls, and people said, hey, we really want you to work on our show. And I kept turning down work, and I was like, man, because I was touring with Kanye. And I remember the Weeknd's team called me in 2011, 2012, early 2012, and said, hey, can you go on tour? And I said, no, but I love I love his music. I really want to be involved. There's this other guy, and I've trained him, and he can go on tour with you. And that's kind of how I started my business. Well, it was really because I wanted to be involved with all these great artists still. And I wanted to give, well, I was still touring at this time also, but I also wanted to give opportunities to friends of mine and people that I knew who were amazing. And I said, I just kept doing that. I kept saying, okay, there's this amazing person. I'm going to help them. I'm going to train them. I'm going to level them up and put them out on this tour. And it just kind of slowly started forming. So then the Yeah Yeah Yeahs called me next, and like Sleigh Bells, and just it kept kind of going. And then before too long, I had a company.
and there's a process. You conceptualize. You get like there's a 4 or 5 step process to, because now it's everything. It's not just programming music. It's design and staging and lights and the whole number. Correct.
Well, I'm not going to take responsibility for all of that stuff, but we do collaborate with the lighting and video and all of those people. It's an interesting, depending on what artists we're working with, sometimes we're the musical director. It's like with smaller artists, it really is like, hey, we make decisions creatively about the show. And that's one of the biggest misnomers, I think, about this job. It's like, people joke about it and they say, oh, you just press play or you press spacebar.
No.
It's like,
no, it's
so
not
much
like
more
that.
than that.
Much more than that.
So much more than that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the process is, again, it's different for every artist, but I find a lot of joy in especially helping emerging artists, or, like Logic is a great example of this. Like, gosh, it was only last year, I think, last summer,
Unbelievable.
where he started breaking out, right? And he was moving from a DJ setup to a full band with in-ears and the whole mix. And that's when they brought my company in, and I worked with him personally and just showed him, hey, like, this is what's possible. This is what you can hear in your in-ears. This is what you could do. And it's just a great experience to be able to work with artists like that are just like, hey, I want to do more. I'm ready for this, but I'm not sure how to do this. And so just situations like that are really, really great.
And that's part of your, we just had discussion about innovation and those artists who say, hey, I want to try. I want to take that step. And the idea that you can be a concierge to innovation is, it's a pretty cool thing.
Absolutely. And just to see their faces, like when something unlocks for them, they're like, oh, I get it. I get why you're here. Because a lot of people in the touring world, they don't get what we do, and they're like, why are we paying you guys all this money?
Right.
Well, there's a reason, because we're running the show.
Yeah, exactly.
You call yourself a controllerist. What the hell is that?
Someone who uses a MIDI controller, just like a DJ would use a turntable, right? So
I like the term.
So a friend of mine.
Did you make it up?
I didn't. No, I can't take credit for it. A friend of mine, Moldover, he's known as the godfather of controllerism. He's incredible.
Do you know Yuta?
I'm sorry?
Do you know Yuta?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah, we live in the same neighborhood.
Right. Yeah,
he's great. He was on here, right?
Yeah. And we used to have him at live events, and he would take
he's got the glove
and turn it into.
So it's just this process of using controllers in unique and interesting ways to perform music. Much like a turntablist would use a turntable to scratch and perform over.
So between controllers and what you play, does that start to make up parts of your show? Your live show?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I've got, my go-to controllers. I've got my Wii controller that I use for my vocal effects live and with artists that I work with, and to be able to turn on things like auto-tune and delays and distortion and pitch shifting, all of that like in real time in the moment.
I thought you said weed controller, and I started to look for Mike D.
Oh.
Is Mike here?
hiding out here, yeah.
Exactly. I didn't smell anything, so I thought we were cool.
Oh man,
I can imagine on tour. I can only imagine.
Genius.
For sure. Absolutely.
The controllers you're using. This is going to be the worst question I've ever asked on the show.
Okay.
But there's a lot of little squares on it, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there's no. Do you write on a Sharpie like what the little square is, or how long does it take you to memorize? Remember Jamie on the show?
Oh, that we had in Nashville.
Yeah.
For I think it was. No, he was working on a machine.
Or two machines, and they got some color coding, but yours are all the one I saw on your website was all white. How do you remember? Like when you're playing notes, do you have like an arrangement that you use?
Yeah.
So this would be the tonic and then the second interval, third interval. Is that the way you do it, or how do you do it?
Yeah. Well, so depending on the controller, but the Ableton Push controller, there's two different modes. There's what I call the easy mode and the hard mode, and the easy mode is all in the particular scale that you want it to be in. So you kind of can't press a wrong note, depending on what sound you're going for. But then there's the chromatic, so you can press a wrong note in that version. You have to be very skilled to play that version. But in general, these controllers, like, there's different pages, like, there's so much that you can do. If you press a button, then that pad changes to be something completely different. So it's really just knowing your set and practicing.
Yeah, but you have to
really
know which
practicing.
button it is.
You have to know what button it is. Yeah, and sometimes you make a mistake, and you gotta laugh at yourself, and it's just funny. We've all accidentally stopped the show, not with major arena tours, but when we're all experimenting on our own. We experiment, just have fun and be free.
I think it feels like I think I'd like to learn how to do that.
I would love to show you something.
I bet it could be used in mixing, like mixing live, not live, but but record it, but do it on the fly, rather.
Well, actually, I'm working with a film composer right now to have a live setup in his studio, and then we're capturing everything in his DAW. So he just wants to be free, do some sound design, create some things. I mean, a lot of it probably isn't going to sound that great. Some stuff is going to sound amazing. And then that stuff that sounds amazing, he can just capture it on his main workstation and then throw it into his compositions. So I absolutely think there's something for being like in that flow state where you're just jamming and you're kind of losing yourself versus like sometimes when we're producing or in front of the computer, there's all this pressure, like we got to get this right. There's this structure. And I think when you're jamming and having fun, it's like a completely other thing.
But you have to get the information that button's going to control into it first before you can do all that.
You do, and that's what the whole art of programming is. Is really making those buttons do what you want them to do or what the client wants you to do.
And for when you're programming and doing, design for live shows, same process, because it's got to be collaborative. Artists may have a point of view or they may not have a point of view.
There's a lot of collaboration.
Gotta be.
Yeah. I mean, especially starting with engineers, right? So a lot of people don't really understand this about our job. And what my company has gotten really good at is being an archival system for all the stems for all of the artists we worked with, right? Because a lot of times with artists, they work with different mix engineers and the stems are everywhere.
Yep.
And then depending on the engineer and how they're feeling that day, they might have just bounced some drums, like all the drums. And you're like, hey, I would love to have, the kick separately, each of the different kicks that you use, the snare, separately, the clap, all that kind of, the hats, all that kind of stuff. And once you get that, or sometimes you don't, but once you get that, it's like gold, right? So keeping all of that stuff together.
Folks have to be super organized.
Yeah, to be super organized, and I've had a client that from, I don't know, 7 years ago or something hit me up recently. Hey, do you have these stems from way back then? Because we can't get in touch with the engineer. I'm like, sure do.
Boom.
They're right here in the vault.
Wow.
So yeah, collaborating with engineers is like the first step of the process, and being very specific with them about what we need because oftentimes they don't really realize that we actually need every little bit of audio.
So artistry, teaching, online courses, designing for great artists and so forth.
Yeah.
What's the future? What's coming?
I mean, everything.
Just
everything about. Yeah. I mean, I'm just open to unique things that come my way, and again, collaborating with amazing people, and just to really just help support each other and collaborate in that way that's meaningful, that's for a greater purpose. And
do you put the records out yourself or the EPs? So you do it independently?
Yeah, I'm all self-release. I'm all independent.
So your team's doing that as well too?
Yeah. I mean, I have a team, for all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I'm just creating more and more just to see what I can do. Like this course is completely brand new. We did Master Track this past year as well, which is a playback course. It was 2 week in person. We're going to do it again this March.
Cool.
And
where'd you do it?
We did it at Bedrock Studios. Yeah. And that was a really cool experience because it was like, hey, do people want to do this? I don't know. Let's see. And we had people from all around the world fly in, and it ended up being like over 100 hours of training. I mean, it was super intense and amazing, and just incredible. Some of the people that went through that program are now on tour with Mariah Carey and Ariana Grande and Big Sean, and through my company. So it's
what exactly are you training? I'm confused about that. What are you teaching them? Are you teaching them
how to be playback engineers and programmers? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so to run all of the music playback for the shows, like what I was doing with Kanye and these artists.
Like we've seen some of the equipment. You teach them how to hook it all up. You teach them
how to troubleshoot it. Teach them how to like what happens in those moments, where things go wrong. That's like the main thing, how to keep your cool, communication. I mean, there's so many different aspects to what we do. People think, well, you just press space bar. It's like, again, the communication right from the get-go, the communication with the artists and the leading up to the show, about expectations on the day of the show.
God, you speak my, the reason I was laughing is
Yeah.
very few people understand the intricacy of the choreography.
Oh yeah.
From preparing to interacting
Yeah.
to being knowing what's going on, moments on stage you're trying to hit, what works, what doesn't work, cues.
Cues. Yeah.
You have to over prepare so your muscle memory just has it.
Yeah.
And then you have to know how to get out of it if there's a problem. You have to know how to communicate sometimes without people knowing you're communicating. And,
Absolutely.
I mean, there's all that stuff. That,
we would listen in on, different radio, people saying things over the radio, or walking by a dressing room, or finding out information just keeping your ear to the ground.
Exactly. Exactly.
Oh, wow, this
Yeah.
person's going to come on stage tonight?
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Wait, Drake's here? What?
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. It all counts.
So just being ready. Yeah.
Do you find we have always been very inclusive of gender when we start Pensado's Place? It's always been important to us.
Yeah.
Do you find more and more ladies getting into the space? You see a growth in that area?
Absolutely.
I was just asked to be on the board of Girls Make Beats.
Yeah, I saw that you had them on here.
Yeah,
They're lovely. Yeah.
And then, we're big supporters of Gender Amplified out of New York.
Yep.
Ebony Smith.
Yep,
And,
I'm friends with Ebony as well.
So I'm excited to see the growth of
Absolutely.
folks coming through. And in all kinds of silos in audio.
Absolutely.
Live, in the studio.
Sound
you
Girls.
name it.
Yeah, there's so many Beats by Girls. Amazing. Yeah, I love seeing all of these organizations popping up, and I'm doing my best to just go and support and teach and share my knowledge as much
I'm sure
as
you're
possible.
inspiring to them, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's really important to help young women to just see what's possible. First of all, and just I like to be an example and to just inspire them, and for them to find their own path, but just to know that it's possible.
Because what they don't, one person's opinion, as the silos open up, one of the places that still they could see more of is entrepreneurs, female entrepreneurs who where it's working and they're breaking ground in terms of the way they're thinking about things and being hired just because they're good, not because they're female, and so forth. And those are important stories, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah. And there's so many women out there that are incredible, and I hear about new women every day that I'm like, wow, you've been here in the game doing this, and I just found out about you. So it's amazing, and I think there's definitely just an amazing movement going on right now.
Oh,
so
super.
inspiring. Yeah.
Super cool. Well, you have to stay in touch with us. Are you firing one up there, sir? Are you familiar with Batter's Box?
I am.
Okay. Looks like he has one. I think he's putting some grease on the ball, though.
Okay.
Could be cheating. All right, this is a Floridian Batter's Box.
No.
Let's roll. Well, two
I'm going
Florida
for it
people
this
in.
time.
Okay. Here we go.
Loops.
Polyrhythmic.
Studio or live?
Wow. Live. Just that excitement. Yeah.
Traditional classical music.
Essential. Yeah.
MPCs.
Blinged.
Plugins.
Necessary.
Key.
DJ Khaled.
What?
DJ Khaled.
Virtual sense.
Serum.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Duda.
Yeah.
What's the cheapest piece of equipment you've used either in the studio or live?
Oh, wow. Okay. I mean, probably my Wii controller. And I have this gold
Like a
case
vape,
for
you
it.
mean?
Yeah, the vape. Yeah, you saw it. Okay, yeah. Oh,
knew you were gonna
really
build on
did.
my joke.
You really
Yeah.
did do your homework. Wow.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so, that, because it looks all blinged out. And everyone's It's like, what's that? It's like, $20. Yeah.
That's
Okay, that's funny.
no.
She did good. She did
What,
good.
Transmute's the new project. And,
Yeah, it's
and then
everything.
and we've got the online course that just
that's Transmute as well. The Transmute Accelerator. Yeah.
Transmute Accelerator is the online course. Got it.
Yep. And then Master Track is my playback program. Yeah, that'll be in March. So.
And any live performances planned?
I am performing in New York in January.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
And also I'll be at NAMM.
I heard.
Yeah.
We've been discussing that. We'll talk more about that.
There's a little show called NAMM.
Yeah,
Some
exactly.
people that watch this might have heard of it.
We'll be there too. Thank you for coming on.
Oh, thank you. Yeah,
We,
it's so great.
We're
honored.
pleased that
Yeah.
you're a supporter, and we're supporters back.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
I think it's amazing what you're doing,
Oh, thank you
and
so
it's
much.
groundbreaking. And let's do some more.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, we should
Thank
have
you.
you on some of our live events.
Yeah.
Dave, take us home.
Okay, I'm gonna do something a little bit different. You said that less choices equals a more intimate mastery of your equipment, and so I kept thinking about that. And I'm like, well, I'm just gonna ask her about it. For me, I look at boundaries as allowing less choices, and if I go into a mix with too wide a boundary, it doesn't turn out as good as when I have a very narrow, defined lane, what my client expects. In a sentence or two, what did you mean by that? I find it interesting.
I think that when we limit ourselves to a few tools, I don't know, forced is the wrong word, but we are propelled to create something from that is meaningful. And when I was coming up, I wanted every piece of gear, I wanted every plug-in, I wanted every little thing. And now I'm like, I have to really think about it before I purchase something, because it's like, well, what can I do with what I have right now? Like, do I know that last software synth that I bought? Like, know it, you know? So I think I find beauty in limiting ourselves, and I think it's important. You know, although I will admit, I see some people's studios, and I'm like, man, I could use that modular synth ball. But I really think that there's beauty in limiting ourselves.
I think it is a valid concept.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Yeah.
well,
Thank you.
there you have it. We'll see you next week.
Bye.